We're going to talk today about something that's either the greatest thing ever or a nightmare.
I don't understand it. I don't understand the why of it.
Correct.
Right? Like that's the big question is why.
You are correct,
The
sir.
why, and we'll find that out. And what are we talking about?
Well, here's what we discovered. There is a company, there are companies, but certainly a company that has been tasked with bring back, to de-extinctualize, among other things, the woolly mammoth and the dodo bird. We're going to bring them back, Peter. We're going to take them from extinct to back.
To
it's
non-extinct,
a real
to here,
world,
to here.
real life Jurassic Park. There is a company that's going to do it.
And we said,
really?
Really? No.
No, really.
Really. And it also brings up the question of, we're fascinated with bringing our lives back.
Sure.
Like there are techniques to bring people back from the dead, new techniques for that.
New definitions of death.
There may be a new definition for death, which is amazing. And playing with the genetic code. There was a scientist in China who got arrested for changing the genetics of a baby who had an illness, and he went in and was able to manipulate the genetic. Our guest is involved in that, not that kind of stuff.
How are we going to create Captain Americas if we're not allowed to genetically manipulate?
I was thinking just that.
And cryogenically freeze and preserve. It's happening. It's happening, and our guest today is one of the people that's making it happen.
Really? No, really? Really? No, really?
Our guest today is Dr. George Church. Dr. Church is a geneticist, a molecular engineer, a chemist, an entrepreneur, a pioneer in personal genomics and synthetic biology. He is a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School, professor of health sciences and technology at Harvard University and at MIT, and a founding member, I'm going to say this wrong, the Weiss Institute for Biologically Inspired Engineering at Harvard. In 2017, Time magazine listed him in the Time 100, the list of 100 most influential people in the world, listed as one of the top 8 famous geneticists of all time. That's all of human history. That's our guest, Peter.
You know what?
What?
Time just found out he's on our show. He went down to
11
and 12. Down, off the list. You're off the list,
hello
George.
To Dr. George
How
Church.
are you,
Welcome, sir.
Good to see you. Nice beard,
by the way.
Can I ask you one question before we get into the topic? Because this depresses me. I hear your bio. In 100 years, I couldn't do all of that stuff, classes and night school and this and MIT,
Sure.
and you're going here. I get a pizza, I lie down, I take a nap,
Right.
I get up,
You're
I read a book.
exhausted,
I really wonder, what kind of person are you that you did all that? Do you have like unlimited energy? Do you not sleep? Are you taking uppers, downers? What are you doing? How do you do all of that?
Yeah. No, I'm just like you. I take a lot of naps. I'm narcoleptic, which means I fall asleep when I don't particularly want to. So.
Oh boy, I hope
Wow.
Jason, we got to work hard not to put him
Wow,
to sleep.
yeah.
We got
We have to be very
This podcast
entertaining.
has been known to put people to sleep, by the way, so we will be cognizant of your But it is. I got to tell you, I've not often do I see a bio that has that much
accomplishment.
it really has that much accomplishment. So congratulations.
It just makes us feel worse about ourselves.
I did. I felt horrible. I couldn't even get past it.
I know. I understand.
So bringing the big issue, we saw the article about bringing back the woolly mammoth, and I guess Jason and I both had this. We went really, and both of us went, why?
Why? Why?
Okay.
Why? Now, first of all, can you explain to us what your participation in that program is specifically?
Almost every aspect of it. We didn't really have much ability to do it for a decade, partly because of technology and partly because of funding. Didn't really seek that much funding.
Yeah.
But now, as of about a year and a half ago, we have adequate funding. And so I came up with the idea, partly prompted by people like you asking questions. A journalist from the New York Times asked the right question, and I started thinking about it and decided we could do it. But it was only recently that we really could do it. We So my lab developed the technology for making multiple changes in DNA, essentially writing DNA into elephant cells to
Wow.
to make them less endangered and to make them more adaptable to the cold as a starting point for this adventure.
Wow. First of all, I want to know at the end of this the name of every funder he has, because he went to them and said, "Hey, I'm going to bring back the mammoth," and they went, "I'm in.
We'll write you a
We could
check."
get funding for almost anything we want to do."
But we have to use his name. We have to use his name.
A friend
If
of
that's
ours,
okay with you,
Dr. Church, a friend of mine, very, very, very close. We're very close. So why? So Peter's right. That begs the question: why do this? What's the guiding light for you on this project?
Well, so we wanted to both deal with endangered species, develop technologies that could help endangered species, and also endangered environments, in to some extent, including the global environment. And so it's a little complicated answer. I'm sorry. Most of my answers will be simple, but this one is the elephant is endangered, and all species of elephant are endangered because they coexist with humans that either they're a nuisance to them by destroying their farms, or they are a target for poaching for their ivory.
Right.
So it would be nice if they could have a homeland. They used to be spread all over almost the entire globe, and one of those prominent places were close relatives to the modern elephants. The woolly mammoths were present in the Arctic. So if we could make them cold resistant, then they would have 20 million square kilometers. They could roam all over where there basically are almost no people and much less conflict. And then they can return that favor to the Arctic. The Arctic's in big trouble because it's melting, and it's melting at twice the rate of the temperature is going up twice the rate of most other parts of the Earth. And what's at risk is in the Arctic, there's a lot of methane that could be released, and that methane is 80 times worse than carbon dioxide. Then the question is, well, how can cold-resistant elephants help keep the permafrost frozen? And in the three ways, and then I'm done with this long answer.
No, I love it.
The three ways are that a lot of the snow builds up kind of like a down blanket in the trees, and there's no animals that can really feel they can penetrate and tromp down the snow and look there. But not so long ago, a few thousand years ago, before the mammoths, 10,000 years ago, before the mammoths were extinct, actually before a lot of herbivores were driven to extinction in the Arctic, it was mostly grasslands. It was very rich, much richer, more species rich than it is today. And the grasslands were easy to maintain, and they tromped around in the snow, and then the cold winter wind would minus 40 degrees would get down and freeze the permafrost every year after a summer thaw. So that's one thing, is the changing trees to grass allows the herbivores to tramp it down and dig around and let the wind penetrate. Second thing is that grass is more better photosynthesis and carbon sequestration, pulling the carbon dioxide out of the air. And the third thing is it's better at reflecting the heat and the light that heats up the permafrost. So those are the three reasons why the elephants might help with probably one of the biggest risks to global warming, which humans are not.
No, but this is brilliant. Brilliant.
And that is amazing, because I got to tell you, that answer alone just spun my head around on this entire thing, because it really, to me, at first glance, and I would imagine then to a lot of people, this seemed like a sort of ego-driven project about we can do it, so we will do it in a sort of Jurassic Parkian kind of a way. But the notion that it actually preserves a species that is endangered currently, and allows them to inhabit a different part of our planet,
also impact
and impact
climate change, etc.
That My head is spinning.
That's called
from
thinking outside of the box,
Yeah.
outside of that box, and outside of that box.
Yeah.
Thinking. Because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, how does this apply to all the extinction? Because I see the rate of extinction is just so rapid. But the other question then
Right.
is, when you bring back an animal, is it based on good eating? Because I saw there was a story about the massive meatball that was made from woolly mammoth DNA, which they put out there just to show that they could do cultured meat. And
Who
again,
did this?
they
Does
did. It was a
say
company that wants to, that is going to produce cultured meat, which again is to help save the environment ostensibly. So they did the woolly mammoth to get attention for this. What do you what do you think about it? Is that a realistic thing? Is cultured meat and bringing back animals for that reason a thing?
Well, ironically, I work both on the ancient and endangered species that we were just talking about, and also on cultured meat with a company called Upside
Of course you
Foods.
do. Yes.
And that was not the company that did this stunt. I guess they felt they didn't need to, because they could have easily done it with my cooperation.
Yeah.
I think it is realistic. I'm a vegan myself, have been, I don't know, mostly since 1973, and I think it's kind of a solved problem, but it's certainly a marketing problem. And there are a lot of vegan burgers that taste as good as regular burgers,
Yeah.
as far as I can tell. Like Beyond Burger is a good one. And the cultured meat is not vegan, but it's also not harming animals, and maybe not as expensive eventually. Right now, it's fairly expensive. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm kind of putting a little bit of scientific advice into each of these solutions. I think the vegan one is probably the most cost effective and long term. And
As
it's
far as
just
the
a matter of
solution.
making it tasty and getting everybody on board.
So I now have clarity on the specifics of the Mammoth project, but we've also discovered, and perhaps you're working on this, the Dodo. There's a project where they're trying to bring the Dodo back, the Christmas rat, the Tasmanian tiger, and I guess my head goes to, again, why are we bringing back the Dodo? Do we need more rats? Are we running low on the rat population that we need to, why, how, to the extent that who determines and how do they determine what animal is worth de-extinctifying?
Right. So a lot of this is being done by a single company called Colossal, which I'm a co-founder of, along with Ben Lamm. They're responsible at least for the Dodo, the thylacine, and the mammoth. Mm-hmm. They have not announced any others, and I think the rat was just something where people studying the rat wanted attention, and they claimed they couldn't de-extinct it. And so it's hard to prove that kind of negative, especially with technology advancing exponentially. So for example, over the period of a few years, decade and a half, we brought down the price of reading DNA, both ancient DNA and modern DNA, human DNA even, by 20 million fold, so 20 million times less expensive and a lot higher quality too. So in the face of that kind of progress, it's hard to say, because we can't bring back a rat today, therefore you can't bring back a mammoth or a thylacine or anything else tomorrow. So I think that, but I don't think anybody is actively interested in doing that. But I think it's the technology is. I don't see anything about the technology that rules out the possibility of synthesizing a complete genome and therefore bringing it. Or they also, for a while, they said you couldn't read the genome completely, but I think that's proving to be false as well. So I think we can read the genome into the computer. We can make changes if necessary to make it more adapted, and then print it out.
What? But I'm sorry, Pete. But so specifically, why the Dodo? Is there a reason, a la the mammoth, for bringing the Dodo back?
So both the thylacine and the Dodo have to do with sort of national interests. That there's national pride? It would be like if the American eagle went extinct tomorrow. Would you say, well, that's done, forget about it? Or would you, mount an effort? And I don't think there's the same strong ecological argument that we have for the cold resistant elephant, for the mammoth elephant hybrids. But there might be. I'm just I'm part of the team, but I think we're the Dodo and the thylacine are more recent additions. We've been talking about the mammoths since 2007. Dodo and the thylacine were just this year. But I think the countries where they went extinct recently, much more recently than the mammoth, still feel that their spirit is still there and should be given another chance.
Huh. So giving them their Dodo. So when we talk about these issues, you mentioned the permafrost, and we talked about it in another show. Permafrost is melting at a rate that's really dangerous. And
Yes.
what's in the permafrost are viruses that we're going to have to deal with from hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, that we don't know if we're resistant to. Animals are being uncovered, all kinds of ramifications of that. And the permafrost covers a good part of the planet. So when this thing starts melting, holy crap, we've got a lot of stuff to look at. I'm curious, with someone like you, are scientists working independently to solve issues because there's a monetary reward with a big company, or because they have an expertise, or is the community sharing information? Are you sharing it with China? Are you sharing it with Iran? Or is everybody, their top scientists, on board because they all realize the extent of warming, the extent of permafrost melt, all of these issues, bringing back, de-extincting, basically to save the planet? Or are we independent bodies that aren't sharing, and they all want their own deal and their own integrity and their own acclaim? Yeah. So is that happening now because we understand where we're at?
I think this is most of my experience in science and engineering has been one of sharing, reciprocated all over the world. There are a few examples where there's some kind of race for a particular monetary or goal or nationalistic goal, but I think this is definitely one where, as far as I know, the whole world wants to do what it can to stop climate, to have climate change be under control or reversed. I think the debate there is more about how do we do it without going broke, more than how do we not share. And I have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of my inspiration for this project with the elephant and the mammoth came from a Russian scientist, Sergei Zemov, who has about 160 square kilometers of land given to him by the Russian government in the northernmost part of Siberia. And I visited there. We collaborate basically. And yeah, we're sharing all that information. He's sharing it. He has monitoring for carbon dioxide and methane on the land, and he does experiments where he reintroduces herbivores. No elephants yet, but many other kinds of herbivores that are well adapted to the Arctic, to see their impact on the forest versus grass and the release of methane.
Mm. Wow.
So that's one example. I mean, I could go
but
on.
That's good. That's good to know.
All the examples of sharing. Yeah.
It's good to know, because today it seems like with the news and clickbait that even in science, people have to kind of amp it up a bit, make claims that are a little bit noisier, louder to get funding, to break through the din, to get acceptance by the public. It just seems like a different game, and I didn't know if that changed for you too, where you have to participate in that the noise making and all of that to be heard and to get your projects funded.
Part of that question is, considering the ecological impact that you're talking about, is it? I would imagine it should be easier to get funding for something like this, but is it difficult to get funding for these projects?
I think the difficulty in this case, I have to lay all the blame at my own feet. That is to say, I just assumed it was difficult, and so I didn't actually try. In my defense, I was working on the technology that would be useful for a variety of different things, right, including this. And so I didn't feel like there was a giant rush to go out and raise money. And quite frankly, I don't like making a lot of noise. Um, I have to say I do get attention occasionally, but it's not my goal. It's just happens because of the projects that I choose. But and in this case, every year since 2007, some journalists would ask me, how's the Mammoth project going? And I'd say, well, it's not really going. We don't have much money, but I'm not complaining. And then eventually one year, Ben Lamm read about this and came to my office and started talking to me about a variety of topics. And I'm not sure he had a particular agenda. And he locked in on this one. And he said, I'm going to help you raise the money that you need to do this. And I said, well, good luck on that. I haven't been bold enough to even ask philanthropists or government or investors. And he said, we'll raise 3 million. And he ended up raising quite a bit more than that.
Wow.
So I'm very indebted to him as well.
Jason's going to write a check, by the way. Jason, you'll write a check for the Mammoth project.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm doing the Dodo. I'm going to do.
Are you doing the Dodo?
Yeah, I'm doing the Dodo.
Wow. All right, because it sings.
Are you judging?
It appeals. No,
are you judging?
Whatever animal.
I like the Dodo.
Whatever animal. By the way, you should do that.
First of all,
they do in a zoo. Adopt a de-extinct animal.
Yes.
Yeah, they do it at the zoo. Well, it works. Come on. You're smart. You got the 50 degrees. I think you show the picture and you say you do sad music and you go, would you like to see the Dodo back? He deserves to be back. Send your check to, and in your lifetime, we could inhabit.
I'd probably do. You know what I'd get? One of the little frogs that disappeared. I'd probably get one of those.
You like those?
No, I'm just saying that would be if it was a lottery and they drew my name and an animal. I'd get the little frog.
Your voice, because you went there. Let me ask the doctor.
Yeah.
I'm hearing my mother's voice right now going, they're extinct because they're supposed to be. Let it go. Let it go. Bring it. But why are you playing with that? Keep what's here and let that go. It was meant to be gone. Resonate with you? My mother?
I can see it, but to some extent, we're not initially bringing back the mammoth. We're making the endangered elephants, so it's not extinct yet. Don't let it go. And now we may get around to the mammoth pretty quickly. The technology is improving to the point where we could make all the changes rather than just the cold resistant ones. But there's no rush on that. I think there is a rush on the cold resistance and the climate change.
Makes sense.
And so we don't have to deal with the extinction except the extinct species issue, except for the dodo and the thylacine, where there is.
Yeah, Doctor. You know what I wanted to ask you though? Because you must. If I understand this correctly, I'm about to be, my ignorance is about to be thrown in my face. But because you are using non-extinct animals as part of this regeneration process, you're not literally recreating a woolly mammoth. You're creating a hybrid using the genetics of a woolly mammoth. In all of these projects, right? You're not literally bringing back a species from the dead. You are creating a new hybrid species.
That is correct, but there's nothing. We haven't ruled out the possibility we could get it 100% mammoth DNA.
Really?
So that's just not our initial priority. And I can say that not only is it not our initial priority, but there are things that we can do that are neither mammoth nor modern elephant that would be beneficial. So, for example. There's a virus, a herpes virus, that is close to extinction. It's part of the extinction process, and it kills about 25% of young calves at the time of weaning, where they lose the mother's antibodies that come in through the mother's milk. So we would like to make a EEHV, herpes virus resistant elephant, as part of the deal. So that would be something that would be neither species.
Wow.
So it's not really a hybrid as such. It's just a synthetic biology solution to a global extinction problem.
Herpes taking him out.
Yeah.
Almost took out my cousin. Are there medical applications that we can see today, presently, that are offshoots of all the work you're doing? Because people listening to this going, bringing back a mammoth is something that's great, and it's kind of sci-fi, and I hear that the permafrost is melting, whatever, but does this yield medical results continuously where you go, wow, this can be applied to MS or whatever?
Yes, it's not that far off in the future either. I think we have done a very similar set of experiments that in a way de-risks the elephant project on pigs. So in pigs, we've made in pigs we've made 69 changes in their genome. So think of each edit, we call them editing the genome. Each edit is difficult. It would be like editing Mount Rushmore or something and change one of the faces. That's a lot of work to do one. We did 69 of them, and those pigs are healthy. And their impact on medicine is that their organs are being transplanted now into non-human primates and into humans. The clinical trials phase is just beginning. So that's not only addresses the shortage of organs worldwide, but also it allows us to make organs that are, in a certain sense, healthier, on demand, resistant to certain human pathogens.
That's amazing.
And so on.
How much?
So that's one. That's
very
cool.
The second and last so far is that we need to improve the reproductive capability of elephants, because and we do that by engineering stem cells to produce sperm and eggs, mainly eggs. Those are hard to get, and that's already shown benefit in the clinic, or it's moving into clinical trials as well, where we have granulosa cells which support the egg development. So when you go to an in vitro fertilization clinic, a lot of the eggs that you get from the would-be mother are immature. And so now there hasn't been a great way to mature them to get a higher yield. And so now these granulosa cells that we get from stem cells, which is very analogous to what we're doing with elephant reproduction, is already being tested in human in vitro fertilization clinics.
Can I, because it is so clear that the work you're doing seems massively beneficial to everyone and everything, but do you have any feelings about personally, or do you respond in some way to the people that would look at the work you're doing and say you're playing God, that you are changing
the ethics of it?
The ethics of it, exactly. I mean, I know I totally get that it is beneficial work, and that the intent is to benefit the planet and humankind. But when you, for instance, I'm thinking like if PETA heard that you made 69 genetic changes to a pig so that we can now have pigs born to harvest their organs, they might have a reaction to that. What is your feelings about all that?
Well, like I said, I am a vegan, and I wouldn't. The number of pigs that you need for organs is a tiny compared to the number of pigs we use for bacon.
Right.
It's on the order of billions of pigs are given up for bacon, while it would be, hundreds of thousands, and you could harvest many organs at once for many different people in principle. But I still think it's a valid concept, and we're working in parallel on a much harder strategy where we can make human organs from human cells in culture. So it's just like the meat that was humane, that's grown without animals. We want to grow organs.
Right.
Now that's much harder, but
possible,
there's
right?
Exponential. It is possible. So in the meantime, we don't want millions of people to die, and I think that's the trade-off.
But you know what, I mentioned,
I certainly wouldn't kill the pigs just to eat them.
Right.
But anybody who wants to, join me in being a vegan, then they can, and if they don't have any friends or family that need organs, then we can have a conversation.
I had mentioned, I think in the opening, we got to run,
Yeah.
but that a Chinese doctor did gene editing in an embryo of 3 children, to eliminate the possibility of a certain disease that they could identify and he's in jail right now. That's taking it to the next level. How do you get to that point where you can identify that the genetics, we have the capability to do that, and this person looks like they have a certain gene that's going to give them this? How do we decide, and how is that even plausible?
Well, so this person is J.K. Huh, and he's not in jail anymore. He was in jail for 3 years. He was creating a technology that really wasn't necessary, and is ethically problematic for a huge fraction of the population of the Earth, and that's why he was put in jail.
Got it.
So, and he was well aware of the ethical concerns, and he thought he was addressing them, maybe, but he was basically ignoring them. And the reason it's particularly sad because it's unnecessary. So, if you have a genetic disease, there are gene therapies and other therapies that can be developed for them after you're born. Can be applied after you're born. There's even less expensive approaches where you can get genetic counseling, which is done throughout the world, so that the would-be parents can either try a number of different strategies, ranging from adoption to dating, decision making during dating, so on. And that's hundreds of dollars, while gene therapy is still in the millions of dollars range, at least for these rare diseases. So I think that's an example of an ethical decision that I think most people agreed on. Just one person deviated. I teach a course in ethics. It's actually required by of all grants, all universities getting grants from the National Institutes of Health, and it's a great opportunity to discuss this sort of thing.
You're unbelievable. Well,
do you just before you go, do you foresee in the near future, in the next 20 to 40 years, is genetic is using the CRISPR and making genetic changes, is that going to be where human health care goes? Are we going to attack our major diseases and our major afflictions through genetics? Is there a human application to this in the foreseeable future?
Well, we're already doing it. There's about a dozen approved gene therapies. And that number is growing. It's probably one of the most rapidly growing categories. Like I said, unfortunately for rare diseases, it's expensive, but for common diseases, you can apply the same methods of gene therapy, and the price is dirt cheap. So it's like millions of dollars for a rare disease, but for a common disease like the pandemic, all the top 5 vaccines were formulated as gene therapies. So 3 of them were viral capsids with a double-stranded DNA payload that was with the vaccine, and 2 of them were lipid nanoparticles with a single-stranded RNA component. So these are exactly how main ways you deliver gene therapies, and there was $2 a dose, or $2 to $20 a dose in that range. So I think that's genes already having an impact, but there will be more and more. I think billions of people have now benefited from having bits of foreign DNA material injected into their arms. So I think we're getting good at it.
Wow. I would think. I got to ask you before you go, because you look so dignified. You got the beard, you got the corduroy jacket. Is there a memo that you guys get about how to? Is there a Jurassic Big and Tall store? An Indiana Jones, the line of clothing that we don't know about, because it's that look. I couldn't carry it off, but you look like that guy. You
There's
look
some
like
artifacts back there, but I don't see the whip. I don't see the whip.
Because I don't see a guy like you walking out in seersucker with white tennis shoes. It's just not the thing, right?
Right. No memo that I got.
I got it. Well, listen, thank you.
You kind of blend in. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you got to blend in. So when you go to a convention, it's kind of that. It's like, where'd you get the corduroy? Where's your corduroy?
Yeah.
Do you have a pipe? Do you smoke a pipe? No.
No.
No pipe.
No.
Okay, there you go. Not if
Alas.
not if you're a vegan. Well, thank you. And by the way, with the narcolepsy, you didn't nod out doing our thing, which is a good.
That's a testament, I think,
So
to us.
with the narcolepsy, do you just go at any given time, or can you feel it coming on?
I usually don't have much warning. Usually a conversation will keep me awake, but not always. I've fallen asleep on my bicycle. I've fallen asleep.
Oh,
standing
no.
up.
Lord.
60 Minutes got a picture of me falling asleep standing up during one of my lab meetings.
No. And how long
Yeah,
do you go out for? How long do you
it's-
go out for?
It varies from seconds to, I don't know, 20 minutes, something like that.
Wow.
In
And
that
nothing, no treatment for that that's effective?
There are some. My daughter also has the same genetics, roughly the same, and she recommended against them. She said, they keep you awake, but they impair your creativity.
Yeah, we don't want that. Trust me.
Yeah,
I already feel guilty that we took up 35 minutes. We could have been saving people, inventing
We could have
stuff.
had 5 new animals.
Five
in the
new
time that
animals,
we took.
permafrost. We're wasting your time. Well, thank you for coming on, Dr. Church.
This is very important stuff.
No kidding.
Talking to you.
No kidding.
It's the same thing with this is how I communicate with the rest of the world. I'm listening to what you all think is interesting and important, and like I said, the whole mammoth thing started with a conversation with somebody from the New York Times. So
Fascinating. Well, thank you
I'm
for
very
coming
indebted to this conversation. Yeah.
Well,
It's amazing.
we are too, and
We are
your work
thrilled.
is amazing.
Thank you for doing this. Honestly, I know I heard what you said, but we
Greatly
we
appreciate
are
it.
always amazed when people of your stature
there's a you.
take some
Yeah.
time away from your work to talk to us and to answer these questions. What you're doing is really cool, and I do mean it. I came into this conversation kind of going, why are people doing it? It just sounded like a kind of a vanity project, but you have spun my head around, and I say bravo and continued success.
And straighten up the bookshelf a little bit, just a little bit. It's all going to fall over. I know you're busy, but it's like going to fall on your head.
But
Yeah,
by the way, you see
yeah.
all the elephants?
The elephants
It's
are up
if
there.
we
He's got
didn't
a
know.
lot of stuff,
As if we
lot of
didn't know
stuff.
he's working on the elephants.
And I can imagine, is the desk, you got stuff
Right.
everywhere, laying off, you're that kind of guy? Pieces of everything everywhere?
The desk is a little bit more orderly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. there you go.
Okay.
Well, thank
God.
you.
Take care.
Oh, it's a real pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
For us, too.
Take care.
You're amazing.
Bye now.
You must have a lot of fun doing this, John.
Oh, we have
We
a
have
blast.
a great fun, and we
We have
always
a
talk to
blast.
people.
at their high point.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, we meet
Yeah.
people so above our
And we
pay
haven't
grade.
talked to anybody yet that we weren't thrilled about. I mean, we only do stuff that really makes us go, what is that all about? And
And the other
then we
part of
get
this
wonderful
is
people.
we get to keep your name, and if shit hits the fan, we know who to call. So that's also not to be selfish about it, but it doesn't hurt. You know, to have your number.
Okay.
So, thank
Okay.
you.
Well,
Thank you,
feel
Dr.
free to call.
You got it. You're a good man.
excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks again.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, he was fascinating. That was one of those guys that you go in the room, you meet him, and you go, his brain is better than my brain. He's got things going on that no way my brain could function at that level.
It's so foreign to me that I can't even wrap. That's why I said to him, I don't know how you have time in a day to do all the stuff you do, because it involves so much genius work.
Right.
It's not like I'm going to do a puzzle, a crossword puzzle, or Wordle. He's
By the way, that's my day. If I get Wordle in 3,
it's like I'm exhausted. Got to
good
lie
to
down.
go.
Got to
Yeah.
lie down. So interesting. Bringing back stuff, bringing back the dead is really interesting. It used to be, if you perished a couple hundred years ago, they might have tickled you with feathers.
To bring you back?
To bring you back.
Yeah.
Tied you to horses for trotting therapies. Don't know. And if you're back,
That's
I'm going.
good. If you died from, you swallowed something wrong, that might dislodge
The
you.
original Heimlich.
Yeah, that's right.
Which, by the way, is the only time I saw my parents touch. And also, then they started doing cold therapies, which they still do today. And what's interesting is our sense of being brought back. The New England Journal of Medicine in the late 1990s tracked rates of recovery following cardiac arrest on TV dramas like ER and Rescue 911. So those shows had a 67% rate of people recovering. So
right,
when-
they hit you with the paddles.
and
in the back.
you recover. When older people are asked their rates of survival following a cardiac arrest, they believe their chance of survival is more than 50%. A quarter think their chances actually top 90% because of what we see on TV. What is the actual rate for your chance of survival outside a hospital setting if you have a heart attack? The real rate of survival.
Now, let me just clarify. Does this include if I'm in the back of an ambulance?
No, this is you're out in the street. You just
I'm at my home and I fall down. I'm having a heart
attack. What's the rate?
attack.
And they come and get you and try and revive you and stuff. What do you
Okay.
think?
How long?
I don't just answer. Just give me an answer.
27%.
8%.
8%?
It's that low, which is really shocking. And at the Safar Institute in the University of Pennsylvania, they're doing stuff now where they're stopping gunshot victims' hearts. They're replacing it with a saline solution and cooling them down.
Replacing
and
what?
keeping alive the blood with a saline solution injected in their veins, replacing the patient's blood, which allows them to give them ample time, another 2 hours, to work on people, to resuscitate them. And the guy who's studying that, the author of Trauma Red, who also worked on Gabrielle Gifford, said now every time he declares somebody dead, he says, I could write and then think, could I have suspended them? And it's going to change the definition of dead, that we're going to be actually able to bring people back in a way that we never have before, which is really strange. And our scientists said they're reviving cells in dead pigs to grow the dead cells so they can actually give us organs that we didn't have before. And if they can do that, then they can do human organs and bring us back
Does
that
this
way.
apply to television series that were canceled?
No, our series is dead.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing
There's
to
no
that.
hope.
And then
There's
you
no
got
hope.
cloning. Barbara Streisand cloned her animals. I don't know how I feel
Cloned
about
her dog.
her dog. Yeah,
Yeah.
her dog. And I don't know that. I think the new dog went, Barbara Streisand, I don't know who you are.
You know, that's the thing. You know, I have to say, Dr. Church really, he turned my head around about all of this, because I came into this episode thinking this is an ego thing. But I absolutely see all that is positive and perhaps glorious about this work. But I also, a part of me goes, does it make us more cavalier? Oh yeah, the species is dying off. Hey, don't worry, we'll bring it back. We'll bring it back. Instead of looking at why is it dying. Well, he actually is though. He's looking at the
But a
elephants,
lot of us are-
and he's going. You know, he's going their resistance to cold. But
A lot of us are cavalier, but thank God there are guys like that
Yeah.
exist that are digging down. Thank God. I mean, because us, what are we doing? Like Ted Williams is cryogenically frozen. That kind of
right,
stuff.
just his head.
Just his head. He's going to be pissed if they do bring him back.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. No, so let
First
me
thing
ask
I'm
you-
thinking, if I'm Ted Williams, I go, I had a career. I made money. You guys couldn't spring for the other $1,500 a month for the.
I wasn't known for my head. I was known for the
Yeah, hello.
everything else. Would you now? Is that a thing you would do? Are you if you God forbid you had a disease that we cannot cure, and they said you're gonna go, and they gave you the opportunity, right? Wouldn't cost you anything. They gave you the opportunity. They said we can cryogenically freeze you, either full body or just your head. When we can cure this disease, we will build you either an android body, or we can clone the rest of your body, or grow your organs and your cells back, cure your disease and bring you back, but it'll be 200 years from now. You in?
That is the most absurd pitch. You know, you listen to sales pitches, and I go, so you're going to hold my money now on the bet that in 200 years,
Well, no,
somebody's
they
going
got
to
to keep you frozen.
And by the way, that you're going to keep me frozen. Number one, yeah, that's the freezer that he's in.
Okay, but let's assume that they could keep you frozen. Let's even assume that 200 years from now they can do this. You doing it?
No. Why would I want to come back? I don't know anybody. I'll be the dumbest person in the room, whatever room I go into,
Right.
because of technology. I'll be going, what's that you got? What are you eating? I never saw it. Nah, I don't. I want to be here with my family, and when it's the end, it's the end.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think I'm the same way. I mean, like anybody else, I am curious to see what the future would look like. I'm curious to see what my grandson's grandson might be, or grandchild, I should say. But I don't know that I would be a stranger in a strange land.
That's what I mean. So there's no appeal.
I would have no frame of reference. I already feel at the age of 63.
Like you're out of it.
Like the world is changing to a place where I can't keep up with it. I can't keep pace with it. The technology is changing. You're already playing with Chat GPT. I'm afraid to go near it. I don't want to get involved with it. I don't want to. It feels alien to me, you know, and it feels like a different reality to me, not one that I grew up in, not one that I'm familiar with. It doesn't frighten me. It just makes me feel displaced. And I can't now jump 200 years at the rate of change that we're going through now.
There's no way.
It's madness. All right, but if you could bring back somebody,
You tell me first. Who do you bring back?
Well, jokingly, I said to you the other day,
Jerry
Lewis.
Because lady, we miss that
Who would
so
I
much.
bring back? You know who I would? Okay, honestly, I would bring back my dad.
And I was going to say the same exact thing, and that because we didn't have enough time.
I now I know the things I should have asked, and the things I should have maybe done,
Well, and also getting to a certain age,
and the things I could have said.
I can only imagine stuff he went through. So I want to hear him talk about that.
Yeah.
So that would be.
And it's both my parents, but I
No,
guess
for me,
because
it's my dad.
I'm a guy, my dad was quiet. My dad.
Well, and I also got to know your mom. You spent a lot of time with your mom.
Yeah.
Both of my parents have been going a long time, but my dad, I was going to work with him, and we were going to finally spend time together.
Yeah.
And he got stomach cancer, and that was the end of it. So I felt a bit robbed. So that would be.
I had a lot of
very
time
cool.
with my dad, but he was of that generation where he didn't talk about what was going on with him. And I feel like now, as an elderly man myself, an older man,
You could
that
discuss with him the stuff.
I could get him to talk about stuff, but
Let's talk to Guggenheim.
I'll tell you one other thing. Let me
Go
ask
ahead.
you one other thing I'm not sure about. Talking about being preserved, so I know I'm not going to get frozen. But I'm watching now these popular entertainments like. I went to Cirque du Soleil, the Michael Jackson show, and Michael Jackson's on the stage. He's literally on the stage.
Oh,
it's him
hologram.
performing as a hologram. Tupac, right? ABBA. They got all these things where they've preserved these guys, and now they can present them, in nearly total realistic form. Do I want that done? Do I want somebody?
Here's the deal. May I tell you, and then we can move on to Guggenheim. You don't have to worry about it because your heirs, no matter what you tell them, will sell Jason Alexander in a minute.
Why
There's
do
not
you-
even a question
Oh,
about it.
Please.
You're going to say to them on your deathbed, you know what, whatever you do, don't make me hologram. You're going to pass away, and they're going to come to your kids, and they're going to say, would you make your dad a hologram? And they're going to say,
Absolutely not.
they're going to say, what number are we talking? What number are we talking? And then it's all bets are off. I'm just saying, I love your kids,
you're
but
a
I know your
cynical
kids.
man. I
know
can't
your
deal
kids.
with you.
You will live
I
on
can't
for
deal with
thousands of
you.
years to come as a hologram. Guggenheim, what do we have?
Yeah, well, I just can't wait till the post-mortem Jason Alexander cameo appearance.
Oh, he's going to be selling he's going to be selling enemas, teeth whiteners, hair growth,
Adult diapers.
everything. Anything they bring him, the kids are going to say, let's check it out. We're good. No, we're good. We're good.
All right, so we were learning about, obviously, the woolly mammoth that existed during the Ice Age, and of course there were other things like Neanderthals, that were back there, and the Ice Age, of course, was approximately 2.4 million years ago,
Sure.
and it lasted up until just 11,500 years ago, so it wasn't that far long ago.
Feels like yesterday.
I wanted to see if you guys know, because we all know about dinosaurs, right? But do you know which animals were existing in the Ice Age?
In the Ice Age?
In the Ice Age. So here's a quiz. It's a quiz for you. I will give you yes or no, true or false. The saber-toothed tiger.
No.
See, now, I'm not sure. So here's going to be the basis for many of my answers. I'm going to give you my inside baseball.
All right.
I live near the La Brea tar pits.
Wow.
So any of the animals that are in that tar pit are probably Ice Age-ish, and I believe they have a saber-toothed tiger. So I'm going to say...
Just say it.
They couldn't have, because
much-
they would
oh
have
my
died
God.
off in the Ice Age. No, on the saber-toothed tiger.
Well, that is actually correct because the saber-toothed tiger doesn't exist. It's actually the saber-toothed cat.
Ah.
That was a
technicality.
We were
Ooh.
taught incorrectly. They were actually more similar to African lions, and they're most closely related to the clouded leopard.
I've always said that.
How about the mastodon?
Mastodon, I believe, was the Ice Age.
I'll say no just to be contrary.
Yes, mastodon, correct. That was an Ice Age creature.
Oh, wow, you're
The
brilliant. Just
woolly-
brilliant.
The woolly rhinoceros.
That's a thing?
Maybe, maybe not.
Oh, I've never heard of the woolly
I've never heard of it
rhinoceros.
either.
I think you're making that up.
Ah, you're wrong. The woolly rhinoceros. The woolly rhinoceros was covered with long, thick hair that allowed it to survive the extreme, cold, harsh mammoth steppes.
Wow.
All right, next animal. The cranium rat.
The cranium rat. No rat
Cranium
was
rat.
around in the Ice Age. So
I'll
if,
say
if
yes
it's a
just,
thing,
to,
no.
just to say yes. The only rat that was foraging in the Ice Age was the cranium rat.
So, Peter, you say
I'm saying
true,
yes.
the
I'm saying
cranium
yes.
rat
I'm saying
was...
yes. Cranium
No.
rat. I don't believe I'm
No,
even guessing this stuff.
No, the cranium rat, it's a Dungeons and Dragons monster. So, no, that's not a real thing.
And by the
That's
way,
not a
you know
real
what?
thing.
I should get points for not knowing that, okay? As far as Dungeons and
Well,
Dragons.
there you go. Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens.
Not in the Ice Age. Nope. We are post-Ice Age creatures.
Homo sapiens emerged about 300,000 years ago. So, yes, we were through the Ice
Could
Age.
give us one last one because I'm going to strangle myself.
Okay, I'm going to give it the giant beaver.
Giant beaver.
The giant beaver.
Don't.
I
I'm
will
only
say-
going to tell
I
you
will
right
say
now.
Not only did it
don't.
live, not only did it live during the Ice Age, but it was worshipped as the animal. It was actually the animal of the year one year, and on all the
But
Ice
you know,
Age,
if you squeeze its anal glands, you get
vanilla. You get vanilla.
Um,
So they had a calendar with different beaver every month. They had the January.
what was it? The name of it? The what beaver?
Giant
The
beaver.
giant beaver. If it
You couldn't remember giant beaver, really?
If it exists, and I'm not saying it does.
It
If it ever
exists.
existed,
Oh, it exists.
It had to be post-Ice Age.
Growing up to 2 meters long and weighing up to 100 kilograms, the giant beaver is the largest rodent known from the Ice Age of North America.
That's exactly right.
Look at that.
It was. There's
I think
statues.
what we learned is I was right on everything.
As you see the permafrost melting, you'll see statues of the giant beaver that other animals
They
would actually
worshipped.
use their teeth to chisel out because they just worshipped the giant beaver. They said of all animals, gosh, you're it. Well, thank you, Guggenheim. We want to thank our guests too. Thank producer Laurie.
Thank you, producer
Thank you,
Laurie.
Jane. We don't thank her enough.
And everybody in the booth.
We don't thank her enough, and she tells us that. Where's her
I
face? I
know.
wouldn't see Laurie's face. I just got.
That's why we don't thank her. She left an hour ago.
No, she hurt her ankle a couple of weeks ago, and she actually broke it, a hairline fracture. So she's in a boot. She's got a little bit of a boot, which, by the way, is the Australian way of saying about.
No, it's not.
A boot.
A boot is the trunk of a car in Australia.
Okay. Good night. Drive safely, everybody. See you later.
And that's the kind of factual
Giant beaver. I
information
heard it
you
from the
get
giant beaver.
on Really No Really.
You got it.
As this episode of Really No Really comes to an end, you may be wondering what other animals have scientists already cloned. Well, I'll tell you, right after I thank our guest, Dr. George Church. You can follow Dr. Church on the X app, formerly Twitter, where his handle is @GEOChurch. You can reach us at reallynoreally.com. We're also on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Threads, where we are at Really No Really Podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Now hit that subscribe button and tick that bell so you're updated when we release new videos, which we tend to do every Tuesday. If you have a Really No Really, something that amazes you, let us know, and if we use it, we'll send you something. Nothing useful or expensive, obviously, but something laying around that we don't really need anymore. Follow us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, other cloned animals include a ferret, a mouflon, a carp, a gaur, and a common fruit fly. That's right, we're cloning fruit flies, because someone decided we need more of them. Really No Really is a production of iHeartRadio and Blase Entertainment.